We are living in the absolute golden age of Metroidvania. Never before have we had so many maps to fill out, so many double jumps to unlock, and so many backtracking excuses to make. But today, we aren't talking about the ancient texts. We are respectfully leaving Super Metroid and Symphony of the Night in the Hall of Fame. Today, we are ranking the top 10 modern Metroidvanias, the games that took the classic blueprint and supercharged it for the current generation. So, ready? Let's go. This is Grime. It's an atmospheric Metroidvania with heavy Souls-like elements, and honestly, it's one of the most unique and underappreciated gems in the entire genre. This game drops you into a surreal world of anatomical horror. The walls aren't just stone, they are made of weeping faces. The grass is made of hair. The enemies are sculptures of flesh and stone that wants to dismantle you. But here's why this game is so incredible. The entire game revolves around one mechanic: absorb. In Grime, you don't just block attacks, you time your parry to suck your enemy's essence straight into your black hole head. This is how you heal, and this is how you build your power. Now, here's the brilliance of this game. If you absorb enough of a specific enemy type, you unlock their passive traits in a skill tree. So yeah, you're basically hunting the world to become stronger. Then there are the weapons. They are living weapons. Hear me out. They mutate mid-swing. A sword might look like a finger bone, but when you swing it, it sprouts teeth and bites. A heavy axe might transform into a giant jaw. The animations are heavy, weighty, and deliberate. You cannot button mash here. You have to commit to every swing. Grime is weird, challenging, and visually stunning. The lore is cryptic, the atmosphere is thick, and landing those perfect parries is endlessly satisfying. If you love Metroidvanias or Souls games, do not sleep on this one. For years, fans begged Konami for a true sequel to Castlevania Symphony of the Night. They didn't listen, so the godfather of the genre, Koji Igarashi, decided to do it himself. This is Bloodstained, Ritual of the Night, and it isn't just a spiritual successor, it's the modern evolution of Igavania. You play as Miriam, a shard binder. If you played Area of Sorrow, you will feel right at home. The core mechanic is the shard system. Every single enemy you kill has a chance to drop a shard, giving you their power. So, you can throw axes, summon bats, or turn into a giant demon hand. With hundreds of shards to collect, the build variety is absolutely insane. You aren't stuck with one playstyle. You can be a mage, a brawler, or a gunslinging vampire hunter. This game is massive. The map is a sprawling, interconnected gothic castle filled with secrets, breakable walls, and distinct biomes. And the treasures? There is so much of it. You can craft weapons, cook food for permanent stat buffs, and even customize Miriam's appearance. From katanas and greatswords to literal kung fu shoes, the game constantly rewards you for exploring. We also have to talk about the sound. The soundtrack is composed by the legendary Michiru Yamane, the same genius behind the Symphony of the Night score. It's haunting, driving, and nostalgic in all the right ways. However, I must add, it's not on the same level as Castlevania Symphony of the Night. If you haven't heard that, I would highly recommend for you to check it out. Bloodstained had a rocky development, but today it stands as one of the best Metroidvanias ever made. It captures the magic of the 90s classic, but with the modern quality of life. If you miss the old school Castlevania, which in many ways defined this genre, go ahead, play this game. Welcome to Ender Magnolia Bloom in the Mist. If you thought the first game was beautiful, this one is on another level. We have traded the Reign of Death for a toxic magical smoke, and we have swapped ruined medieval castles for a crumbling arcane industrial revolution. I mean, it's stunning, it's haunting, and yes, it's absolutely worth your time. The biggest upgrade here is the game feel. The first game was deliberate, sometimes a bit slow. Ender Magnolia feels incredibly snappy. You play as Lilac, who can purify the blighted artificial life forms gone mad, and once you save them, they fight for you. You have 4 active skills at once, and the synergy is beautiful. You can juggle enemies, set up traps, and mix melee and range attacks on the fly. I mean, it feels less like you're struggling to survive and more like you're dancing through the combat. The difficulty is still there, yeah, but you have so many more tools to handle it now. So while you're handling movements such as dodging and jumping, the purified souls handle the actual attacking. Swords, guns, magic, and even hand to hand. Each soul often has multiple variations of their attacks. Say for example, the main sword wielder Nola isn't just a single slash. You can customize her to be a rapid attacker or a heavy hitter. So, to wrap it all up, Ender Magnolia is everything you want a sequel to be. It respects the legacy of the original while smoothing out the rough edges. It combines a gorgeous, tragic art style with combat that is fast, fluid, and deeply customizable. It respects your time with a great map system, and it respects your skill with challenging but fair boss fights. Whether you are a veteran of the genre or just looking for a beautiful world to get lost in, Ender Magnolia is a must play. It's not just a great sequel, it was a strong contender for the best Metroidvania of 2025.
7.
This is Dead Cells. Kill, die, learn, repeat. If you have heard this phrase before, it's probably because of this game. Dead Cells isn't just a platformer, it's the gold standard for modern rogue-vania. It blends the permanent upgrades and exploration of a Metroidvania with the permadeath and tension of a roguelite. Just to give a reference, a newer game that comes to mind is Hades. You play as a glob of sentient slime possessing a reanimated corpse. Your goal? Escape the island. Spoiler alert, you probably won't. Not at least in the first many tries. And when you die, and die you will, it doesn't feel like wasted time. You collect cells from fallen enemies to unlock permanent blueprints, better health potions, new weapons, and starting gold. You are constantly getting stronger even when you're failing. The combat here is arguably the best in the 2D genre. It is fast, fluid and incredibly responsive. You have hundreds of weapons, from standard swords and bows to ridiculous things like frying pans. The magic though lies in the synergies. You aren't just hacking and slashing, you are building a loadout. Maybe you find a shield that freezes enemies on a parry, paired with a sword that does critical damage to frozen targets. Every single run feels different because the game forces you to adapt to what you find. Dead Cells has that just one more run energy that'll keep you up until 3 am. It's tough, it's fair, and feels amazing to play.
6,
We waited 19 years for this. After nearly 2 decades since Metroid Fusion, Samus Aran finally returned to 2D, and not only did Nintendo deliver, they redefined the entire genre. This is Metroid Dread. So when Metroid Dread finally arrived on Switch in 2021, the stakes were impossibly high. It didn't just have to be good, it had to justify a generation for waiting, and somehow they absolutely nailed it. This isn't just a nostalgia trip. Metroid Dread is a modernization of the entire 2D action genre and is easily one of the best games of all time. The first thing you will feel is the movement. This is without a doubt the best Samus has ever felt. She's lethal, agile, and incredibly fast. Gone is the floatiness of the old games. In Dread, you are sliding, dashing, and aiming freely in all directions. The gameplay is also buttery smooth, making simple traversal feel like a high-octane action movie. However, this game has a brilliant central twist. This action game quickly becomes a horror game in the blink of an eye. The title isn't just a cool name. The dread is real, and it comes in the form of the Emmy Zone, EMMI. The game shifts from an action platformer to survival horror. You are being hunted by indestructible robots that can one-shot you. It takes a high-octane action Metroidvania and turns it into a high-stakes game of cat and mouse. You go from an apex predator to helpless prey in a heartbeat. The tension when you're hiding, listening to the chirping getting closer, is palpable. Outside of the droids, the boss fights are cinematic masterpieces. They require pattern recognition and precise timing. When you finally beat a boss in the game, it's not because you are lucky, it's because you mastered the dance. Metroid Dread perfectly balances the feeling of being a powerful bounty hunter with the terror of being the hunted prey. It is stressful, beautiful, and absolutely essential playing.
5,
This is Nine Souls. Imagine cyberpunk atmosphere mixed with the parry style combat of Sekiro. If that doesn't get you excited, I don't know what will. It's the latest from Red Candle Games, and yeah, it's easily one of the best and most unique Metroidvanias to drop in years. It's a gorgeous, hand-drawn world set in the New Kunlun, a floating realm where alien gods rule over the remnants of humanity. The atmosphere is thick, blending traditional Eastern architecture with high-tech sci-fi horror. You play as Yi, a long-forgotten hero on a suicidal revenge mission to hunt down the 9 rulers. But the story is shockingly deep, diving into heavy themes of immortality, ethics, and tragedy that gives real weight to all the violence. But don't let the pretty art fool you. This game is absolutely punishing. Forget mindless hacking and slashing. The combat here is unapologetically inspired by Sekiro's Shadows Die Twice. It's all about deflection. You have to parry attacks to build up internal damage on enemies, which you can then cash out by devastating talisman strikes. It turns every single boss fight into a lethal high-speed dance. If you refuse to learn how to parry, you will not finish this game. Nine Souls is a masterclass in fusing demanding combat with rewarding exploration. If you love the world of Hollow Knight but crave the challenge of Sekiro, this is essential playing.
In these times of darkness, hope is the only thing that keeps us fighting. I will fulfill my destiny and save the kingdom.
For 14 years, the Prince of Persia franchise was basically dead, buried in the sands of time. But in 2024, Ubisoft didn't just bring it back, they completely reinvented it. You play as Sargon, an immortal warrior. The combat is built around air attacks, perfect parries, and Astra surges, which is nothing but massive anime style super moves. It's fast, it's buttery smooth, and makes you feel like a god. But the real magic is the time powers. You don't just get a double jump, you get Shadow of the Simurgh. This lets you mark your position in space, move somewhere else, and snap back to that marker instantly. You use this for your combat combos, but you also use it to solve some of the most brain bending puzzles I have ever seen in a 2D game. However, the reason this game is a masterpiece, it solved the biggest problem in all Metroidvania games. That's going back to a location which you couldn't access earlier, where remembering those locations is the biggest problem in most Metroidvanias. Introducing memory shards. When you find a blocked path, you don't have to write a vague note or put a generic pin on the map. You press one button and the game takes a screenshot and pins it to that location on your map. Brilliant. The world of Mount Off is massive, the boss fights are spectacular, and the platforming challenges will test your thumbs to their absolute limit. Prince of Persia The Lost Crown honors the legacy of the old games while setting a new gold standard for the modern genre. Whether you are a Sands of Time veteran or a Metroid Dread fan, you cannot skip this. These are Ori and the Blind Forest and its sequel, Ori and the Will of the Wisps. These aren't just great platformers, they are arguably the most fluid, emotional, and visually stunning games the genre has ever seen. First, let's talk Ori and the Blind Forest. The core mechanic here isn't a sword, it's the bash. You don't just fight enemies, you use them as launch pads. You grab the projectiles in midair and fling yourself across the screen. It turned platforming into a rhythmic flowing dance where you barely even touch the ground. And instead of traditional boss fights, Blind Forest gave us escape sequences. These are high-speed do-or-die platforming gauntlets set to incredible music. They are stressful, beautiful, and utterly unique to this game. And then came if the first game was a masterclass in platforming, the sequel is a masterclass in everything. The devs looked at Hollow Knight, took notes, and completely overhauled the combat system. Now, Ori has a spirit sword, a hammer, a bow, and a customizable shard system that lets you build your own playstyle. They also added massive multi-phase boss fights that test your combat skills just as much as it tests your movement. It fixed the one complaint that people had with the first game, lack of combat depth, and turned it into a strength. Ori and the Blind Forest is a tight, focused platforming gem, and its sequel, Will of the Wisps, is a sprawling, combat-heavy epic, and so I had to put them as one. Together, they form the perfect circle. In a genre absolutely flooded with games trying to be the next Hollow Knight or Symphony of the Night, how do you actually stand out? You just don't make a good game, you make a nightmare.
Endless waiting has been my penance.
Blasphemous didn't just enter the Metroidvania chat, it kicked the door down, dripping in gold, guilt, and gore. Making it easily into my top 10 is the Blasphemous series. These two games took a bizarre mix of Spanish lore and religious horror and turned it into one of the best Metroidvania experiences ever made. You aren't just exploring a map, you are surviving a world cursed by the miracle, a divine force that twists people's sins into physical monstrosities. It's grotesque, it's uncomfortable, and it's arguably the best pixel art we have seen in the last decade. This game is steeped in the iconography of Spanish Catholicism. And the reason this series sits in the Metroidvania high table is because of how it's evolved. Blasphemous 1 was a Souls-like platformer. It was heavy. I mean, you could feel the weight of your sword, the mea culpa. Platforming was also challenging. It was rigid, and the spikes were instant death. It was about patience and parrying. Then Blasphemous 2 came out and completely flipped the script. They listened to feedback, they removed the instant death spikes, they added air dash, but most noticeably, they gave us 3 starting weapons. The combat loop in these games is addictive. It's crunchy. Hitting an enemy feels impactful. The executions give us a moment to breathe, and the boss fights are distinct test of your skill. Sure, the game feels difficult, but doesn't feel unfair. A balance that very few games outside of the Soul series actually get right. If you love exploring interconnected worlds, cryptic lore, and combat that respects your intelligence, the Blasphemous games are mandatory playing. Penance never ends, but neither does the fun. Metroidvania genre has absolute legends. We owe everything to Samus Aran and the Belmonts, but every once in a while a game comes along that doesn't just respect the genre's history, it completely rewrites its future. In 2017, an indie team of roughly 3 people, Team Cherry, released Hollow Knight. It didn't just set a new bar, it shattered it. And today we are talking about why Hollow Knight and its sequel, Silksong, stands together at the pinnacle of the Metroidvania experience. So, what makes Hollow Knight the current king? Well, it starts off with the atmosphere. Hollow Nest isn't just a map to fill out, it's a tragic fallen kingdom that feels alive in its death. The hand drawn art is timeless, and Christopher Larkin's melancholic score is practically the second hero. Then there is the feel. Hollow Knight's combat is deceptively simple but impossibly tight. It's tough but fair. When you die to a boss, say like Nightmare King Grim, you don't blame the game, you blame yourself, and you immediately want to try again. The charm system is the glue that holds it all together, offering the most flexible builds in the entire genre. You aren't just finding double jump, you are curating a specific playstyle that evolves as the difficulty peaks. I mean, to put it simply, it's a masterclass in progression. For years, it was a meme, a dream, a collective hallucination of the internet. But now that we have had a few months to digest Hollow Knight Silksong, one thing is undeniable. Team Cherry didn't just deliver a sequel, they delivered the new undisputed king of the Metroidvania genre. Silksong flips the script. Falloom is a kingdom that demands you to be fast. Hornet is an acrobat. She doesn't just jump, she clambers, she dives, she dances. The removal of the stagger to heal mechanic in favor of the instant bind ability changes the combat loop entirely. Then there's the depth. We thought the charm system was peak customization, but the tools and crest system blows it out of the water. We called Hollow Knight perfect. Silksong proved that perfection is a moving target. By expanding the scale, increasing the speed, and doubling down on the intricate level design, Team Cherry has created a duology that simply has no competition. And there you have it, my top 10 most loved Metroidvanias. Now I want to hear from you. Do you agree with my list or do you not? Either ways, comment below and let me know. And for everything gaming, a like and a sub would make my day. Thank you for watching and see you in the next one.